with the parents from the most awe-inspiring fertility stories in recent memory. Tim and Lindsay Pierce made headlines when their baby boy was born from a frozen embryo, 30 years old. The fertility specialist behind the Pierce's miracle baby invited us inside his record-breaking clinic. Take a look.
So when I came to Tennessee in 2019 to start this clinic, the goal was to reduce the number of extra embryos that are created through the process of IVF. Thawing embryos as old as the Pierces really requires an outstanding embryologist. And fortunately, I have one in Sarah Atkinson.
So the technology from 1994, when the Pierce's donor was originally frozen, is dramatically different than what it is nowadays. The Pierce's embryos traveled to our clinic in Tennessee from Oregon. In the early days of IVF, they used a method called slow freezing. Problem with slow freezing is it creates ice crystals. Ice crystals means cell death, so the stakes were really high.
When thawing the older embryos, Sarah's often giving me updates that the embryos survive. Are they growing?
When I looked under the microscope, I was so relieved to see that the Pierce's embryos were alive.
On transfer day, once the patient's in the procedure room, Sarah hands me the catheter that contains the embryos. I thread it right through, and we all watch. You can actually see the catheter advancing. At the moment of transfer, when I push the plunger on the syringe, it's a little flash of light as the little droplet of fluid leaves the end of the catheter. We wait 9 days to see if it works. Sure enough, 9 days later, we got the happy news that the pregnancy test was positive.
9 months later, when we found out that baby Thaddeus was born, it was so exciting.
Look at that picture and to imagine that that embryo resulted in their son. And to think about the journey that that embryo had been on, waiting 11,000 days to be transferred. Amazing.
Wow. Dr. John Gordon and embryologist Sarah Coe Atkinson join us now. Oh my gosh. That was an exclusive look. So you're going to take us through the process of this. First of all, do you feel like kind of godparents?
Well, Sarah says that they have those onesies that say, my first babysitter was an embryologist.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you mentioned, the embryo was taken from Oregon to Tennessee. Your clinic is there in this.
That's right. So this is a shipper tank. And so basically, embryos do move around the country. And so we usually use a company called Cryoport to do that.
And in some cases, for example, if you've gone through IVF and, if my eggs were frozen here in New York and I relocated to Texas, you would transfer your embryos or you'd have to get all of your treatments here. So there are various reasons why they're transferred.
That's right. And so, of course, that's so important. These embryos waiting 30 years to get their chance. The last step, bringing them to the clinic, is going to do the transfer.
How many 30-year-old embryos do you have?
Well, we know we had those, and there are more out there, but we don't know yet until we get matched through an organization such as Snowflakes.
And then you look at the records, and that's how.
And brings them in.
And then brings them. Okay, so this is the tank.
So this is one of the tanks. So basically, this is not the tank that they use, but it's a similar one. And so basically, they are shipped in, and then Sarah and the sending lab coordinate through Snowflakes, and then they are sent to us. So
How many fit in this tank?
So Sarah,
you can actually fit quite a few in the tank. So I was going to show you down here. These are the cryo canes that embryos come in on. There's a sheath, a cane, and a goblet. So each one of these canes can hold multiple different devices. And so these devices can have, normally they have one embryo on them, but they can have more.
How long does it take to thaw one?
So the slow frozen method takes a bit longer. So it's about 30 minutes on the slow frozen. On a vitrified method, that is much faster. It's a rapid freeze, rapid cool.
Wow.
But this shipping tank over here, so we have, when it comes in, this is a protective, we call it the mushroom. I don't know what the technical term is, but it looks like a
mushroom. We'll stick with it.
Yeah, I like it. So this tank here holds the embryos frozen. So embryos are frozen at negative 196 degrees Celsius, which is like negative 323 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow. So we actually charged this before we left. And
that's what it looks like.
Yeah, you can see as the vapor comes out.
So it comes to the clinic like this, and it remains in this storage.
And so we
So
have.
then Sarah will receive the embryos, and her job is then to bring these embryos out and make sure that they are, in fact, the correct embryos, that we match them up with the embryos that were shipped, and now we're receiving.
Are you able to test the quality?
No, not until they're thawed.
So you don't know until they're thawed.
Right.
And how do you define the the quality of the embryo?
So quality of an embryo, there's different types of grading systems. So it depends on what stage that the embryos are. On a blastocyst, which is like how the Pierce's embryos were transferred, they are graded on a scale of A through C, with A being the best and C being the worst. And we grade two parts of the embryo, the inner cell mass that becomes the baby, and the trophectoderm that becomes the placenta.
I say that because I've told my audience this in the commercial break. My son they said it was the best egg. And then when he ever misbehaves, his grandmother said, they said that was the best one?
That's right.
It was a good egg? So I got the grade
That is
A,
so
and
funny.
it's let me tell you,
That's right. That's right.
he's quite an egg I've got there. Okay, so this is how they're transferred. Now, this was shocking to me. This is the actual vial that Thaddeus's embryo was in. This is the actual thing that arrived to you.
That's right.
Why'd you keep? Well, I guess you kept it because it's history making.
Right.
So
What we
it is
do
part of
is,
the medical
we do as part of the medical record. So all the devices, when we thaw them, they actually stay in the
Can I
chart
pick
in the
it up?
lab. You can.
Sure.
Yeah. And so this is an older device,
top
Tamron.
screws off.
So
It screws off?
yeah. There's nothing in it anymore.
I just would think it was like turn and twist and pop it. It just screws off.
So there are all
This
these.
was for 30 years
30
frozen.
Years. Yep, 30 years frozen.
All three of her little
Yeah.
hopes were in that vial.
All three embryos were in
Yes.
here.
One vial.
One
In one vial.
Right.
And so our approach is that the only embryo that can't result in a live birth is the one you don't transfer. So we will transfer any embryo that comes out thawing and is alive gets transferred.
Right.
So we don't separate by grade, this embryo, we're just not even going to put it in. We want to give every embryo a chance, and that's
Because
important.
you don't know.
Right.
That's right. You don't know. You don't know.
Right.
And so these devices, so this is an older device,
Yeah.
and Sarah has this book because, basically a lot of these devices are lost to the sands of time. Most embryologists are not as skilled as Sarah to handle these older devices. And so she actually has this book as a guide to give her feedback as she's hit these devices over the years, how to thaw them, what
So
to do.
this is the folder of the different devices
Right.
that you've encountered.
That's right.
So a lot of these old devices, and like Dr. Gordon said, they are the method's lost to the sands of time. It's things devices that haven't been used, technology that hasn't been used in so long. And so a lot of labs and clinics will not accept them anymore. They have they're thought to have a lesser survivability, to come out of the thaw, less chance of being able to survive. So
I'm struck by the advancement of the technology. I mean,
Right.
even down to the storage and what they're put in.
That's right.
Right. So we've kind of made this, we call it a library, device library here that.
Should this be on paper? Should it be like a hard drive somewhere?
Tamron, it's a little bit like, I feel a little bit like MacGyver, because sometimes, when you open up one of these tanks, we don't know what's coming. We don't know what it's going to look like. Some of them are homemade devices that the lab made from 30 years ago that we don't see anymore. And so we make this library to hopefully help future people in our lab.
I'm going to recommend we have to get this on some kind of hard drive at some point.
Well, here's one of those that everyone thought was pretty funny. Be careful, wear full face shield, might explode. Because literally thawing this on the same day, thawing the Pierce's embryos, a glass ampule that's old school, and we don't use it anymore. Right. I had my safety goggles on, luckily it exploded, hit me in the face, blood running down my face, and so made my note, might explode.
Might explode.
Might explode.
Yeah.
And we have these.
So when you open it and you see the device, you can go to
you
this.
don't know.
You
we
don't
know what's going. We don't know what's coming from that clinic.
And so
incredible that.
That's why most clinics won't accept, is that they don't want to kill them. No one wants to be the embryologist that accidentally kills someone's embryos. It's got all their hopes and dreams. Right. It's got everything, that they are praying for and paying for and everything in between. And we have the donors and the adopting families.
Depending on you.
That's right.
How fast is this technology changing and advancing?
Well, vitrification came on the scene 2005 to 2010, and that was a huge leap forward. It allowed us to freeze unfertilized eggs.
Right.
But also to freeze blastocyst stage embryos, which are much bigger than a 4-cell or a 2-cell embryo, which is a little bit easier to freeze. So that was a huge advance, and so I think that we've really made some huge progress in terms of the survival. We now run probably 97, 99% survival in our own clinic with our frozen thawed embryos.
I know this is what you use for the transfer. I'm familiar with this device a little bit. Where do you see this technology in the next 10 years? Because there are people who say we will look back at the advancements of IVF and wonder, for example, of women who say, I want a career first and have a child later, or parents who've given up hope, that we are at a revolutionary change when it comes to parenthood.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we also have to have a responsibility to our patients, to guide them and to say, this is, as Beth indicated, a really hard thing to have these extra embryos.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks that they will end up in IVF with too many.
Right.
They're worried they'll have too few. And so I think as physicians, we need to prepare them, what are your plans? And since the egg freezing technology has advanced so much, maybe we should be shifting a little bit more towards separating between freezing some eggs and fertilizing some eggs rather than fertilizing every egg because of what's coming down.
Right. Well, thank you so much. You're the nicest embryologist I ever met in my life. Give it up for Dr. Gordon and Sarah. Tim and Lindsay. Linda, I think, are still standing by.
He's still sleeping.
I can't believe it. So, baby Thaddeus is still sleeping. Audience at home here in studio, what you are looking at are the 5 people behind this miraculous and historic moment. Coming up, another mom, this time of 2, defies the odds using embryo adoption. There are more people exploring this, and we have the conversation next. Thank you.